Happy Monday, friends, and welcome. You know what time it is. This is another episode of On.NET Live. Keep it locked right here. Our mission on the show is to empower you, the .NET community, to achieve more. I'm one of your hosts for today, Scott Addy, and I am joined by the other hosts, David Pine and Cam Soper. We are super excited to welcome today's guest, Poornima Nayar. Poornima, would you like to briefly introduce yourself to the audience?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Scott, David, and Cam. I'm super excited to be on the show. I'm Poornima Nayar. I'm talking to you from Berkshire in UK. I'm a freelance .NET developer. My day-to-day job is to work with websites using Umbraco. I've been an Umbraco MVP for the past 4 years, so I'm a 4-time Umbraco MVP, and I'm also a 2-time Microsoft MVP for developer technologies. And non-work me, I have a little daughter who I spend a lot of time with. In fact, she might come barging in any moment during this show, so you might get a sneak peek of her saying hi to you all. I read a lot. Tech, non-tech, fiction, anything. And I'm also a student of Carnatic music vocals, and I've been training in Carnatic music, which is a stream of Indian classical music for the past 5 years. So that's me in a nutshell, if you have to put that way.
Kids are always welcome on the show. We're always aiming to recruit the next generation of .NET developers. This is a great way to facilitate that.
And Scott's son has made appearances on this show multiple times.
Yep.
Oh, she's
All
a regular
welcome.
face at some of the meetups that I do as well. She says hi.
It's always a surprise appearance. No planning whatsoever.
and often unclothed.
Oh,
So before
she
things
might be
turn
in
awkward,
her uniforms though now.
before things turn awkward, maybe it is the appropriate time for David to hit us with the related bits topic for today's show.
Let's do it. Awesome. Thank you so much for that. So we're going to look at an article that highlights some of the stuff from .NET 6. So as everyone knows, .NET 6 shipped November of last year. And Stefan Tobe spends quite a bit of time kind of capturing all of the things that relate to performance specifically. So for .NET 6, it was made up of 6,500 PRs. Of those 6,500 pull requests, 550 of them had an impact on performance. So this blog post, or it's more like a miniature book rather, if we could share the link for that, that'd be great, is 4,500 words. So there's no way I'm going to be able to cover that. But if you go to aka.ms/on-net-live/net6 perf improvements, you'll get to kind of thumb through the massive table of contents that focus on all of the different things that, pull requests that directly impacted performance for .NET 6. So as you see some of these blog posts come out, you'll see like an emphasis on performance, improving everything, every part of the stack, from JIT to GC, threading, system types, IO, you name it, it's here. So I encourage you to go take a look at that. And that's pretty much it for the related bits portion.
Real quick, David, what's the peanut butter link there?
I was hoping you'd call attention to that. Peanut butter. This, I don't actually know offhand. Literally thousands of PRs, blah, 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 blah. However, a fair number of changes, like referred to as peanut butter. So I think peanut butter is just a layer they're saying that kind of glues everything together. So some of the stuff in between that isn't necessarily easily put into some of those higher level categories.
Okay. So this segment is brought to you by GIF.
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 Choosy devs, choose GIF.
Awesome. Let's jump into the hallway track. We will paste that into chat. We've got a request for the link here, so I will do that right now. So in this segment, the hallway track, this is where our guest for today gets to share all of the amazing things that relate to our topic of choice. So I don't even know how to pronounce it. Is it Umbraco? Umbraco?
Well, there are people who say it both ways, Umbraco. I call it Umbraco. And a fun fact is, Umbraco is the Danish for Allen key.
Oh, interesting.
So it's the Danish word for Allen key. I'm not going to jump the gun here, but when you install Umbraco in a solution, you get to see some fun facts. And this is one of the fun facts. And apparently, there are at least 2 cats in the world named Umbraco. That's something that I learned from the installer wizard. Fun fact, isn't it?
So I just want to, before we get too far down into the rabbit hole, I just want to extend a welcome. It looks like you brought like a whole fan club with you from the UK, and everybody is voicing their support for you and looking forward to seeing what you're going to share today.
Oh, thank you. I think it's the wonderful community around Umbraco that we have. I will be talking about Umbraco community as well. But yes, we do have a wonderful, wonderful, very friendly community. So if you want to get involved, this is a good community as well to get involved and be a part of open source as well.
Awesome. So I just have one really general question before we start diving into it. So for me, one of the biggest disconnects I had to Umbraco is how it relates to .NET. Like, is there different clients? Like, what is it? Like high, like 10,000 feet level? Like, what are we talking about here?
It's basically an MVC application. At its very basics, what Umbraco gives you is an ASP.NET Core MVC application. So you think of controllers, you think of your models, you think of your views, you have all that. So this is a CMS which is built on top of ASP.NET Core, utilizing everything that .NET as a platform gives you, so that it kind of makes use of best of both worlds. So you have everything coming in from .NET, and then you have that layer on top of it, which helps you deal with, say, content. You can create content. You can have authorization and authentication for your websites. And the best part of it is that it's not just related to websites alone. I've done websites. I've done applications like workflow applications based on Umbraco, using Umbraco as like the tool to manage that workflow for you. You have IoT devices powering Umbraco, powered by Umbraco. So Umbraco has a content store. So it is a completely headful CMS, but it can be used headlessly as well. Of course, there is a product aspect to it. There is a headless Umbraco on the cloud, but Umbraco as a headless CMS is something that's been in the community, that's been out there for quite long. So you have mobile apps powered by Umbraco, IoT devices, bots. So if you hook it up to something smart like Azure Cognitive Services, the AI, you can have some fun things going on there as well. So it's incredibly flexible, what you can do with it. But I'm not going to go into all the bells and whistles and take you to the moon with Umbraco today, because I want to keep it as an overview, give you a good starting point about Umbraco, which then you can build upon and then read upon and learn upon as well.
Awesome. Let's do it.
Sure. So hello, Umbraco. So the first slide, let me take it away. Cool. If you don't know what Umbraco is, Umbraco stands for Allen key in Danish, but that's not what Umbraco is. It's an open source CMS. It's a .NET-based open source CMS, and currently it is in its version 10.0.1, which is fully on .NET 6. Umbraco is not something quite new. It's been around since 2005, so that is about 17 years, which is a long time in tech. But for a long period of time, it was in .NET Framework until last year in September, where Umbraco moved into the .NET platform with .NET 5. That was Umbraco 9. And 3 weeks ago, that is around June 17th or 16th this year, Umbraco came out with Umbraco 10, which is fully based on .NET 6. It's a long-term support version as well. So when you think about CMSs, the first thing that comes to your head is websites. But I can tell you that from my experience, I have seen e-commerce applications, web applications, that is workflow-based applications, mobile apps, IoT devices, bots powered by Umbraco. In fact, a couple of years ago, one of the award-winning solutions around Umbraco was an ice cream bar in Australia, where robots used to mix up ice cream flavors for you. And the information that was sent out to those robots was powered by Umbraco as well, an API controller. So that's a good example of Umbraco being used in a headless way. It was amazing. I think there's a video of it as a case study on Umbraco website. It's amazing to watch that and to understand the tech behind that. And community is very important when we talk about Umbraco, because community is something integral at the heart of Umbraco. So every year, Umbraco comes together, the community comes together in Denmark for the annual developer or annual conference, Umbraco conference. And this is the picture from this year's conference, which happened in person after 3 years, thanks to COVID. For me, the community is a place where I can safely talk tech as well as anything under the sun. And it's a very vibrant bunch of people, very friendly people, like-minded, and it's a generally awesome place to be in. And the community is very strong. If you're just talking about developers, we have over 220K plus developers worldwide. That is just the developers, but there are other users of Umbraco as well into this mix, which unfortunately I haven't counted out, sorry, but the community is huge. And there's an equally vibrant meetup group as well. There are about 38 meetup groups in 15 countries. So if you want to learn more about Umbraco, meetups are a good place to start with. And of course, there are the conferences that happen during the fall and early spring throughout many different countries as well. But community is just not about tech. Community is a fun place to be as well. So 3 weeks ago, when Code Garden, the annual conference, was happening, my friend Owen Williams, a Scottish coder, he missed out on all the fun because he couldn't make it to Denmark. So he started this initiative called the Secret Stage, which was born out of his love for Lego. So we could all send him our little minifigs, and he used to gather these amazing stories using those minifigs completely based on Code Garden, and he used to tweet them out. It was so popular that all of us were looking forward to what he's coming up with next. So 3 cheers to Owain. Owain, high five, you rock. So that is a little bit of introduction about Umbraco. So before I set the stage and talk about what is coming next, today it's about an overview of Umbraco so that you can then learn from this and build your knowledge based on this. I don't want to build a website in 45 minutes. I want to show you what you can achieve in with Umbraco, and hopefully that gives you enough to start learning Umbraco. So hopefully the demo goats are kind on me. First, we'll have a look at the Umbraco back office. So Umbraco is a content management system, so which means that we need a place to manage the content. And typically, when you have a site like this is something that I've hosted on Azure. I haven't done the brilliant looking website aspect, the front end aspect of it. This comes in from a starter kit called the Clean Starter Kit. Again, a community-driven project. The main contributor for this starter kit is Paul Seal. He owns this starter kit. So I've just installed that into my solution. But if you have a website like this, the CMS lives at /Umbraco. Now, this itself is configurable, say for security aspect. You don't want the /Umbraco to live with your website. You want it elsewhere. That is possible. You can rename /Umbraco to totally something different. That is also possible. But let's keep it simple for today and try and log in.
So while that's going, let me ask you a question. Is this like the same when thinking about other CMS solutions that that are comparable to Umbraco? Would like WordPerfect be a not WordPerfect? Got dated myself. Would WordPress be a valid comparison? Would that be a good comparison for Umbraco?
I don't have enough technical knowledge on WordPress to answer that question, but I believe that Umbraco as a platform is far ahead because it's more than just a content management system. There's a lot of functionality which comes with it. There's a lot of customizations that you can do with it. Jumping the gun, everything in Umbraco is like an interface which comes in with the default implementation. You can swap it, you can replace it, because .NET gives you dependency injection and version of control. So there's a lot of things that you can achieve with that. I can talk about it later, but not maybe demo today because that would be too overwhelming for the day, I feel. So this is what you see when you log into Umbraco. You have the various different sections. This is a custom. Sorry?
I said real quick, we do have our first question coming in from Arnaud. He's asking, does it have workflow?
It has a basic workflow. So say you can have your content writers, you can have your editors, then you can actually say that, hey, when someone actually saves a page, it's ready to go into publishing. send an email to more like an administrator of the content. That is actually built in. I haven't enabled that as a permission in my node. That is available out of the box. But if you want something more customizable, there is a package called Plumber, which is developed by my friend Nathan Wolf from Australia. That has a free version as well as a licensed version. That's one of the best workflow tools available for Umbraco.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
So these are the various different sections. This is a custom section. I have introduced that. So let's leave that aside for the time being. So content is your content, which is your content tree. You have a tree. Content means it's pretty flexible what you can do with Umbraco. And what you do with your code is go up and down the tree, pick out the nodes that you want, and display the details that you want. That is basics of querying in Umbraco. Then you have the media section, which is also content, because media consists of your imagery, your files, your videos maybe. So media is also a part of content. Usually, content editors in Umbraco would have access to these two sections, and maybe users as well, because here is from where you set up back office users, that is people who can log into Umbraco. And you can assign them different groups as well. I have only one user, which is myself, set up into the administrators. Umbraco also has a membership area. And when you think about a website, this is again content, because this is not something you have direct control over. This is all people or users on the other side of the website. So members also form part of your content. Forms is an add-on. So if you want a form builder, which you can hook up into Umbraco, Umbraco Forms is an add-on available for you. Translation comes into picture if you want to translate content, if you want to store little snippets of content like read more or article by, as shown here. It's brilliant. It's very useful when it comes to multilingual websites. Packages. So Umbraco is open source, and you can have packages which you can just bring into your solution. It can range anything from a starter kit to back office extensions to productivity tools for developers, etc. So if you look at the starter kit, there's a whole bunch of them. I am using the clean starter kit. So if you can get an introductory overview of what the package is all about, and even get the install instructions, which is usually a NuGet package.
So out of curiosity, I want to talk about that real quick. So from like a consumer perspective, they can essentially just deploy like the clean starter kit site / package, and then like host it on Azure or wherever. And this is kind of essentially what you get, like this whole content management you get.
Yeah.
Wow. So that's really cool.
Yeah. So users can't do this, because obviously if I give this to a user, I would not be giving them access to the packages section.
Right.
But
right.
Right now it is pretty safe because it's just browsable content. There has to be a developer who has to come in and install the package for you. I know Umbraco was available in Azure Marketplace before. I don't know whether the latest version is still available, but regardless, if you want a package installed, you have to go via the NuGet, which is the best practice in Umbraco world now. In the previous versions, we used to...
If I could briefly interrupt, we do have an interesting question in the chat. I wanted to dig into this a bit deeper, and I will throw it up on the screen. You addressed this earlier in the show. We learned that Umbraco is essentially an ASP.NET Core MVC application, as you've described it. And the question here is asking, is it available for .NET Core? That led me to wonder, do we know which version Umbraco is targeting? Which version of .NET Core or .NET 5 Plus or perhaps .NET Standard?
.NET 6.
Okay, so .NET 6. So
yeah.
we got your answer. For people not up with the latest and greatest, .NET 6 is essentially the latest version of .NET Core. The core name has been dropped from the product.
Yeah, that's still a point of confusion out there, isn't it? Yep. As I said, a developer has to be involved in setting this up. Now, where I come in is this settings area. I'll explain to you why. So let us go back to content. Now let us start looking at a content node. So what I get is a little form, which is pretty friendly and intuitive, which helps me fill the content, help me fill the content and change it online. So let us see, hello on .NET Live. Let us save and publish that and see. Hopefully the demo gods are kind on me. But while that is in progress, if I go into the info tab, I also have a URL. I also have something called the document type. Now, document types are what the blueprint of a content is. So when you have a content, that is a content node, the blueprint is called a document type. Remember, media is also content. So for media, you have a corresponding blueprint called a media type. And for members, you have a corresponding blueprint called the member type. So we are dealing with content here. So we have a document type called the home content. And this is what actually powers the fields that you saw earlier in that little form. And we want a front-end view engine for this as well. So for this particular document type, I also have a template. So I'm saying that, hey, this is a content node of this particular type and this particular type, which uses this particular template. So when you actually show the page to an end user, use this template for me. That is what it says. Now, if I go into, say, the blog document type, the fields might be slightly different. And again, you have the URL. Again, you have a different document type. You can have as many document types as you want, as many templates as you want. There is no limit to it. It's endless. It all depends upon what you want. Now, the setting up of the document types is a developer's responsibility. So if I go into the document type and have a look at, say, the home node, each document type has a unique name and a unique alias, which is what is shown here. And you get a collection of what is called properties, which has been grouped into different sections like content, footer, SEO to make it more intuitive for the users. And each field has a data type. And data types can be found here. So you have a collection of data types that ships in with Umbraco. And each data type is powered by what is called a property editor, which tells you what the display of that field is like. So for example, the text string data type, the property editor is a text box. So what I see in Umbraco for a text box is a text box. So document type, data type, property editors. So going back to the document type again, there are more things here. I can assign a template to a document type. So this will be the front-end view for this template. So whenever a page of this particular document type is requested, this template will be used for viewing or displaying the information. I can also then define what other document types can I create as child nodes to this particular home document type. So I can say for the home document type, allow article list, contact, and content as child node types, which means I can create only content of those types underneath the child node, the home node, which means that my content will have a structure. It won't be, hey, find everything everywhere. That is enough information to get started with the templates now. So if I go into templates here, let me just close this down. Let's go and have a look at the template for home. I'm just displaying this from the back office. There is a Visual Studio solution as well. It is basically .NET Razor views that I'm using as templates. And more about that later. Meanwhile, let us see whether our change has been published. Has it been published? There we go. That's change published as well. So that is the back office of Umbraco in a nutshell for you. I'll show you more things as and when we go. For local development, Umbraco provides you with templates because everything is templates in ASP.NET Core or .NET World these days. So there are templates available for you which you can install, and then you can create new project based on that template. And if you are someone like me who doesn't keep track of the .NET commands, there is this little tool called the Package Script Writer, which was again developed by the wonderful Paul Seal. What you can do is you can actually play with the options. You can give the version of Umbraco which you want to choose. If you want to include a starter kit, what is the admin username? That is the admin user account you log into Umbraco with. And if you're a seasoned Umbracian, you might even want some packages to go with it. You can keep adding that. And what it will do is it'll generate the install script for you, which you can then use and then develop, create your solution with. This is wonderful.
Plus, it is. That's really, really cool. I just wanted to say, like, this could be like repurposed a tiny bit to be a little bit more broad, because this could be used for any .NET. I mean, this is just the .NET command line interface. So this is just, that's really, really intuitive. I like that.
Yeah. And the best thing, it has got query string parameters as well. It's got friendly URLs, which I can share, which is, again, wonderful. So this is a nice little tool. So going ahead, and if you have more local development needs, you can have Visual Studio Code. You can use Visual Studio, JetBrains Rider for local development. And for your database, you can use SQL Server. I'm using a SQL Server for my demo. You can also use SQL Server Express Local DB and SQLite as well. SQLite support came in with Umbraco 10 as well. So that is a good choice for a local development environment as well. So if I just show you the templates very quickly, what options you get with Visual Studio. So let me bring that here. So you get both Umbraco project as well as an Umbraco package. So there's a template. If you are a package developer for Umbraco, or if you want to get started with package developer, there is a package project as well for you, or a template available for you. Was there any question, or shall I move on? Because I know the time is flying.
No, I had just a comment on how much I love SQLite support. We did actually have a question come in, except I'm looking at the wrong view to pop it up. Here we go. So where can we find out more about the architecture behind Umbraco? Right, like we're talking about what's supported in terms of local development, but as far as like understanding the moving pieces, is there something that can demystify that for us?
Let me quickly get it out of the documentation. Fundamentals, setup. Let me pop this in the chat for you. So this is the official documentation of Umbraco, what you can use to develop it with, what you can use to host it, all of that information. And if you're someone looking into how Umbraco actually works underneath the hood, Umbraco is open source. And as I always say, open source code is the best documentation ever.
Poornima, I have a question here. I'm sure there's somebody else thinking this. I look at the list of supported data stores there, and it's all, SQL. What if I'm working on a team where some other database has been mandated? For example, MySQL or Postgres or Mongo. Are there other providers or plugins for Umbraco that would allow me to use those other databases instead?
As far as I know, no, it's just SQL.
And there we go. I actually see the same question in chat. So I'm glad I raised that. So.
Yeah, as far as I know, it's just what is listed there. I don't know about MongoDB support or any other database providers outside the .NET realm or SQLite. So yes, I think it's limited to what is said there. I don't know whether there's planned support for all this later on, because we are living with .NET everywhere now. But that's probably something for future. I don't know whether that will be supported either.
Sure. If not, you had mentioned the project is open source. So if anyone
Mhm.
out there is feeling super ambitious, there's a nice little project for you.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, let me move on quickly. So what you get with Umbraco at the end of it is an MVC solution that is with your model, view, and controller. Your document types becomes your models. Your templates become the view. And acting as the bridge between the model and templates, or the model and the view, is the controllers. And in case of Umbraco, and that is called a render controller. A render controller handles every single request to Umbraco and connects up the document type to the correct template. So let's actually go into the back office and start looking at some code. So what I have here is a document type which I have put together, called the sample doc type. It's a very simple document type with a little bunch of fields. There's a text field, there's an image, there's a radio button list, there's a slider, there's a true or false toggle, and it's got an associated template. I've got some basic content here set up as well, called the sample node. And I've got some details in there. If I go visit this page, there is a front end. So every time I request a page in Umbraco, there's a render controller kicking in. But let's have a look at templates, and let us have a look at the template behind the scenes for this, which is a sample doc type. So this is the doc type that I have here. As you can see, it inherits from something called an Umbraco view page, giving it a strongly typed model. So the Umbraco view page is special because what it brings to you is, of course, you have your model, but it also gives you some Umbraco goodies, something called the Umbraco helper. So this Umbraco helper is particularly useful if you want to query the content tree, if you want to query a particular piece of content, traverse the tree up and down from a particular point and ask for specific nodes, and a lot of extensions and helper methods in addition to that. So the Umbraco view page gives you access to that Umbraco helper. And there's also an Umbraco context that it gives you access to as well. Both are useful when it comes to querying data in Umbraco. We are talking about .NET, so you can have partials. For example, we have a partial here. We can also have partials going into the layout view. So for example, I've got a bunch of partials which I've added here so that it then flows through all the templates which uses the layout view. We can also have view components because child actions are no longer supported with ASP.NET Core. So we have view components now. So I've got a sample view component here. And into the sample view component, I can also inject Umbraco helper, which helps me with the tree traversal and querying nodes. So in this example, I'm injecting Umbraco helper and using that to get the content at root, which gives me a list of items. And I'm saying, I just want one, because I know that in my instance, I only have one root, which is home node. So again, I can then put it on the master page, or sorry, the layout view, or the, any other view that I like component.invoke async, which is pretty standard ASP.NET Core, and have that displayed on my website as well. Talking generally about querying, as much as there is a database with Umbraco, whenever you read content from Umbraco, that is actually done from a content cache, not actually the database. The content cache is built from the database. So whenever you query the Umbraco helper, all of that is actually reading from the content cache, not the database. That makes it faster as well. So the first and foremost lesson to remember with Umbraco is that leave the database alone. Just work with Umbraco helper, and that will do the job for you.
That
And
makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, we've got several questions kind of coming in, so I just want to bring these up real quick. I was actually sharing some of these questions as well. Mm-hmm. So the first one is, someone's asking about how does it actually save in development time? How long would it take roughly to develop 10 pages of dynamic web content? Like, is that something that would take a really long time, or you just use the templates? Like,
I was actually coming to it. If you just
okay.
want brochureware content, it won't take long. I'll give you the answer to that in the next couple of slides.
Oh, okay. And then also, this is focusing on MVC, and like I know I'm seeing CSHTML and like the Razor View Engine and stuff like that. Is there any plans, and I'm very selfish with this one, is there any plans that you're aware of to have any of this functionality in Blazor?
You know what? I love Blazor as well. It's one of the topics I talk about as well. But I don't think there is plans to bring Blazor into Umbraco, like what you see as the core project. But of course, if you want to bring in Blazor to your website, that's by all means possible with a server-side Blazor solution. I've seen samples of that as well. Plus, if you want to use Umbraco headlessly, like just a content store with an API getting the content out, Blazor Wasm, bring it on. There's nothing stopping you on that one.
Awesome.
Now, with
Thank
that,
you.
I wonder how difficult it would be to modify that .NET template that's provided, create your own variation of it based on Blazor, and then install that template instead. Something worth exploring.
Yeah, definitely. I know that the template is open source. I might be wrong, but I know that there is a template and it is in the main repo. So you could potentially go ahead and explore that as well. I haven't done that myself, but yeah, it's something that is worth exploring. I'm going to start moving on with the slides because I know I'm only on the 12th out of the 28 slides that I've got. So what Umbraco gives you out of the box is an interface called iPublished Content. It's not an interface, it's just called iPublished Content, which is actually the strongly typed model for content, media, and members. So talk about content, media, members. iPublished Content is what Umbraco gives you. And Umbraco Helper has a whole ton of helper methods to work with content and media, traversing up and down the tree, picking out properties from a particular iPublished content or a content node. That is all what you can do with Umbraco. Now, back in the template, we saw a strongly typed class here, or a model here called the sample doc type. So this is a representation of the corresponding doc type. And what actually brings that factor into Umbraco is a little tool called Umbraco Models Builder. This was a community package, and it started shipping with Umbraco and finally got embedded into Umbraco with version 8.4. So now this is in the heart and soul of Umbraco at the core. And what the Models Builder helps you do is it helps you generate strongly typed content models. So for every document type that you have, upon save, you can create a public partial class behind the scenes. This is all configurable and the models can be extended as well. So for my document type, that is the sample document type, I have got a class somewhere here in the models folder, which looks like so. So it's a public partial class, which inherits from a ton of different things. I'm going to keep that aside for the time being. And all the properties that you see on my document type, like the title, the text value, all of that becomes properties on this class. And this is all configurable as well. So, and all the configuration happens in from app settings JSON, where you have a models builder section, where you can configure what the mode is, into what directory should the models be written out, and what should be the namespace for the models as well. By default, it uses an in-memory dynamic assembly for models builder, but I can change it to be source code auto or source code manual. With source code auto, what happens is every time I save a document type from the settings section, it regenerates the classes for me behind the scenes. And if you want to extend a class, that is also possible. So for example, it's a public partial class. So in this example, I have extend the sample doc type to have an extended property, which is a custom property, just to show an example that, hey, it can be extended and then reused. Now, what happens from there on is in my doc type, I can use those properties on the model to actually display the values. So if I have a text value field, To access the value, all I need to do is model.text value. And the reason behind this is these models, the sample doc type and all the generated models implements the iPublished content. So without this strongly typed model, what you get what you get for the at model instance is an iPublished content. But with this model in place, what you get is a sample doc type, which is a class which implements iPublished content. So everything that is on the iPublished content is available to you as well. Without this models builder, you would be resorting to something like this model.value, casting it to your corresponding data type, and then putting in the alias, which is pretty long and not very friendly. But with the models builder, this is what you get. So it's a nice way. Now, to answer your previous question about how long does it take, I cannot tell you how long does it take, but if you know iPublished content, that is, if you know your templates, if you know your document types, if you know about models builder and how to actually access the fields of the models builder, you can go a very long way with website building in Umbraco. Because if you're thinking of a brochureware content-only site, you build your document types, you have your templates, you access content. That is all what is needed. And it is all dependent upon how much you know the various data types and property editors in Umbraco. I hope that answered the question. But let's go ahead and move on to some more C#y bits. The first thing is dependency injection. Umbraco makes use of the dependency injection container in .NET. So all the Umbraco dependencies, services, all of that can be injected. So Umbraco helper, that is one classic example of what can be injected for tree traversal. So again, with all of this, you can inject that into your views as well. If you have your own services, that is interfaces and implementations, that can again be registered into your DI container and even be injected into your views. I'm not very vocal about injecting a service into the view, but this is ASP.NET Core. It can be done. So a quick example of that is I've got a service here called My Service. I've got an interface here, which has got 3 different methods, and I've got an implementation here. The only actual codey one is this get all articles, where I'm using the injected Umbraco helper and getting a parent ID, because all articles live under a particular parent ID in my content tree. I can get that particular node using the .content method, and then I can query for all the children of the type article. Rest are some examples, and I can inject it into my DI container, register it with my DI container like so, and actually use it in my views like this. Not only this, you can inject it into your controllers or any other class as and when you see the need for it. Now, it's time to talk about render controllers. This is actually the bridge between your model and view in Umbraco, because this is responsible for handling every single request that hits Umbraco. So it handles the incoming request, it builds the model and passes this to the view. And you generally don't get to see it, or you don't need to worry about it, because there is a built-in default controller used for this purpose. And that default controller has an index action which handles all the front-end requests. Now, there will be instances where you want to replace this with your own implementation. So you can actually replace default implementation in Umbraco with your own instance of a global render controller. Or if you want to control the execution on a per document type level, that is also possible. So let me quickly show you how that can be done. Let's talk about replacing the global controller with my own implementation first. So what it needs is a controller which inherits from render controller. And I am using the iLogger, which is an interface which helps me log in Umbraco. And all I'm doing to prove that this is what being used is log some information into the logger. And to actually make sure that this is used as the global controller, what I need to do is in my startup class, I need to have a little bit of code in place that is here, which is to configure the Umbraco render controller type. Now, if I go into the front end and then just refresh the node and go back into the settings and go into the log viewer, I should be able to see what is being logged. There we go, executing my global controller index. This is from the page view that I had. Now, if you want to customize this on a per document type level, you can do that as well. So in my content section, I've got this document type called my content. And for this particular content, I want to replace the render controller with my own implementation. So let me show you what is happening behind the scenes. In my view, if I go and have a look, it's not the usual content model that you would see. I have a special content model for this case called the my document type view model. So one typical example of when you want to customize render controller on a per document type level is when you want to enrich that model behind the scenes. Again, the starting point of this is a controller which inherits from the render controller. And the name of the render controller should be the document type alias, and then that is suffixed with the word controller. And it needs to have an index action, which is overridden. And in my index action, I can do the work that is needed. So in my view model that I'm passing, so if we have a look at the definition, it has got two properties called my property and articles. So what I'm doing is I'm injecting my service and Umbraco helper in here, which I have. The service is what I showed you as a service that I had implemented before, and Umbraco helper is an Umbraco goodie. I can inject that. I can then reach out to a method in my service and populate the my property. So think of awesome integrations that you want to do and have that coming back to your view as with the model. And I can also then reach out to other parts of Umbraco, like what I've done here. In this example, the get all articles goes and fetches all the article details for me, and then I can pass that into my model as well. And for that, I'm making use of the Umbraco helper to get the parent node of the article list, because all my articles live here. So this is the article listing node, and all the articles appear as child nodes to this particular node. So I'm using Umbraco helper to get this particular node, pass in as the parent ID, and then get all the children based on that. And based on that, this is how I can display the details. If I go into my content, this is what I have. And this list is all coming from that render model. So that is customizing the view model and the render controller for you. There's another set of controllers called the surface controllers. Now, this is useful when you want to have front-end interactions like handling form data submissions. Surface controllers inherit from a surface controller class, and they're auto-routed via /umbraco/surface followed by the controller name and action, which means that you don't need to work around the routing for this. It also has got native support for rendering forms. So let me give you a quick example of that. So I've got a surface controller here. What I'm trying to do is I've got a form which I'm trying to submit. So I start off by having a controller inheriting from the surface controller. And I have a view component for actually rendering out the view component on the page, which is here. So I've got the view component, and that particular view component is submitting back to the surface controller like so. So here we are making use of the begin Umbraco form HTML helper, which submits to the sample surface controller using the action submit sample form. And it is just a basic form. So let's see that in action. I'm not doing anything big with that. All I'm trying to do is log all the details into the log viewer. But we can see that in action here. So the view component renders it out on the template. Poornima, Nayar.
And
best
while
at.
you're typing that in, I do have a question. So in the markup, you had CSS styling some of the HTML elements. Like
Yeah.
how hard is it to discover some of those classes that are available, right, from the CSS? Since I'm assuming that's coming from Umbraco itself.
No, there is a CSS class for this. So as I said, I'm using a starter kit to prettify. So there's a starter kit behind the scenes I'm using for my particular solution. Sorry if I didn't make that clear. And that
Oh,
comes
no.
in with a bunch of things.
So it's
There's
just standard
CSS.
MVC at this point with the
Yeah,
CSS being local. At first, I assumed that would have come from Umbraco. So, wow, okay. That makes a lot of
I
sense.
believe it's using Bootstrap as well underneath the hood with a lot of customizations on top of it as well.
Awesome.
So
Awesome.
it's basically, think of a website, think of the CSS that you need, use that. If you want to use Tailwind, by all means do that. Anything and everything is fine. So I have my document type. In my template, I had my view component. The view component was then posting back to the Surface controller, and we have the form data posted back. Let me just open this up in a new tab because I keep flitting between settings and content. So if I go into the log viewer, it should log that data for me, sample form submitted, because I have some code here which does exactly that. Where is my sample controller? Sample surface controller. So that is the logging of the information going on. But think of sending data to a database or an external API. All of that is possible at this point. You can also have API controllers. So if you want to have a wider reach to a broad range of clients like mobile apps or IoT devices, you can create API controllers. And this is where you also start to use Umbraco as a headless CMS. So for that, I've got a little demo again with code. How are we doing for time? Are we all right?
We've got about 7 minutes remaining.
Ooh, oh God. Okay, so let me just give you the basics then. With Umbraco API controller, what you need is you need to inherit from Umbraco API controller, and then that get routed using this particular path. And then you can have anything pretty much going on in your action. Now, there is a second type of Umbraco controller as well, that API controllers that as well that you can have, because sometimes you want to create a package which works from the back office of Umbraco. So you can then bring in a back office API, which actually inherits from an Umbraco authorized API controller. This means that this API controller will work only when someone is logged into Umbraco. So if I want to go into the get fax method in a browser, I should be logged into Umbraco as well. So that is additional protection. This is very useful in developing packages. Talking about membership, Umbraco has a membership area and it uses ASP.NET Core identity. You can then use the member information to password protect parts of your website or entire website. You can also have complex permissions using your own rules if you want. So you can go to any ends with permissions based on membership. There's also support for two-factor authentication with a time-based one-time password. If you want to bring in external providers like GitHub or any other third-party authentication provider for that matter, and then use that to auto-link your members, that is by all means possible. There is documentation on Umbraco website for that, which I can actually send you to later on. And to help with membership data in the code, we have iMember Manager to help access member data in your views. And if you want to manage members, that is create members, you can have the member service. I'm just going to go at a bigger pace now because I just want to get through the slides and then answer any questions. Of course, when you have a website, you want a search engine or some sort of search on your website. Umbraco has functionality or features for that too. Umbraco uses Lucene.net, and then on top of Lucene.net, there is Examine, which is a wrapper API for Lucene.net, which kind of abstracts away all the kind of generic features of Lucene.net. So Examine on top of Lucene.net, that is what Umbraco uses for searching. XML is a standalone package which was created by Shannon Dominic, and it is now incorporated in the core of Umbraco as of 2010. So it's been there for a long time. It's also used in Umbraco back office. So if you go into the back office and search for something, this is powered by searching from the index that XML provides you as well. Now, as I said, everything in Umbraco is about interfaces and abstractions. So all of these can be replaced. So you can swap out the Lucene.NET implementation for something like Azure Cognitive Search. In fact, there's a package out there for that. You can bring in your own custom search as well if you want. You might have seen enough logging from me in my code, and for logging, Umbraco uses Serilog, and by default, it writes to a JSON log file. And the interface that we use in code is iLogger to write logs in code. There is a Serilog section in appsettings.json, which helps you manage all the config around this, that is here. So when you go into production, you might want to think of other things, right? Like Umbraco log table, or even writing into application insights with logging. So when you go into production, bring in what is called a Serilog sync, which is like a mechanism to write to different pools of data, like an external database or an Azure logging table, for example. This is not it, but Umbraco can also help you manage content within Umbraco. So if you want to create content programmatically, there will be perfect use cases for it. I'm pretty sure. And to do that, you have management services like the content service, which can help with creating content, media service to create media. You already saw about the member service, which can help you create members. All of that is available for you as well. But use it wisely. Use it only when you want to programmatically create content. Don't use it to read content in your front-end website, because these management services can also be used to read content. This is primarily used by the back office in Umbraco, but it deals directly with the database, but never ever use it in your views. If you want to hook into workflow processes in Umbraco, like if you want to do some custom workflow application or send data to a third-party application when you save and publish content in Umbraco, you can do that using notifications. So notifications exist in pairs, like a before and after notification. So you will have a notification while the content is being published, and one when the content is published. You might have one for while the media is being saved and while the media has saved. So there's a before and after notification, which you can hook into, which is incredibly useful. You can really go creative with it. I myself did a prototype of how you can reach out to Azure Cognitive Services Computer Vision to get details about the an uploaded image, and then use that data as the alt text for an image. So you can go really creative with it. And if you have a notification handler, you need to register that into your DA container using the add notification handler method. You can also create your own notifications. This is particularly useful when creating packages. That's not it. You can have really happy editors with Umbraco, because we spoke about property editors. We can create your own property editors. For example, in my solution here, there is the package that I've installed called the Meta Momentum, which helps you preview the details of the page as it was on a search engine. You can create rich dashboards. For example, I have one here. This is again coming from a dashboard package, which gives you all of my recent activity. You can have custom sections. I can create custom sections with trees. So for example, if I go into, I don't have a custom tree here, but hey, that is possible. You can also have what is called content tabs, which is like contextual information regarding your content. So think about, you are on this particular homepage, you want to see analytics information for this particular page. Then you can create something like this, which brings in all that details for you. In this case, I've installed a package called the Skybird Redirects, this tells me what redirects I have to this page. Say, for example, if I go into sample node, I think I have the register page, I think I have a redirect in place. So it helps you see contextual information about the page that you're editing. That is Content Apps for You. You also have multilingual support with Umbraco. So there's a video on the Umbraco documentation site and a tutorial about it. I would highly recommend anyone interested in watching that. So you have support for multilingual content out of the box. You also have a very rich package ecosystem with Umbraco. Think of any kind of tools that you want, from developer productivity to starter kits to website utilities. All that is available for you. And finally, Umbraco is open source. So if you want to get involved, of course, code contributions can help you get started, but that is not all. Reporting an issue or starting a feature discussion is equally a contribution. You can write documentation. I personally love this path because you then get the confidence to go have a look at the code for yourself. You can attend a meetup, attend Code Garden, write an article, speak at a meetup. You can create a package. There's also a Discord server which you can join. There is a very friendly forum, or you can even become a mentor. So there's multiple ways of getting into the Umbraco realm. So that is it from me for the day. I hope I have inspired anyone who is watching to go have a look at Umbraco. And that is me. Thank you very much. I think there was a question from you, Cam, about Articulate.
Well, I had asked the question, and
Yeah.
Warren answered it for me, that there is a plugin available for Open Live Writer. So that was my only question. Is, well, next time I pick out a blog engine, I think I'm going to go with Umbraco.
Yeah, definitely check it out. It's good. What I haven't covered today is more like the advanced feature, like how you can have your own search indexes. The URL segment that you see in the back office, even that is customizable to a great extent in Umbraco. So there is a lot of things which obviously I cannot fit that into an overview today, but the documentation, and there's tons of blog posts from the community members out there which you can read and get started upon.
Thank you for the deep dive, Poornima. I went into this show knowing essentially nothing about Umbraco to all of a sudden feeling like I could be productive and get up and running with this today.
Brilliant.
Also shocked to hear about the IoT capabilities. I know Cam's eyes lit right up when he heard about that.
As always.
I didn't talk about that. Even
But
about that as well. It's fun to play with.
you mentioned it a little bit, and then I think it was Warren gave me some more context on that. So I think I may be playing with that later on.
And with that, we are at time, unfortunately, for today's show. Again, I'd like to thank you, everyone who tuned in today. We appreciate your loyalty to the show, and we hope that you join us next week when we will be joined by guest Tebjan Halm, who will talk about an open source .NET-based game engine called Stride. I'm excited to hear more about this one. As a reminder, and then we'll leave you for this episode, do check out dot.net/live in your browser, and you can find other .NET live streams like this one, and also view recordings from all of the shows. Until next time, thanks everyone. We appreciate it.
Bye, friends.